Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Richard. I'm with Cirrus Research. You possibly know this from the invites that have been sent out to you. And if not, you may be at the wrong webinar. I'm here today to talk to you about nuisance noise, in particular how our product can help you, some best practice tips, and other things of that nature. You'll also receive this a video recording actually of myself. The entire presentation will be emailed to everybody that's attended.
Just wait a sec.
Sorry, my producer's told me to wait for a moment.
Just wait for people to arrive.
Oh, okay. Can you mute me for a second, Jane?
Yeah, 1 second. People are coming in.
Am I on camera now?
Yep.
Excellent, so I can start. Yep. Good morning, everybody. We're going to do take 2 for the introductions. This is Richard Cutting. I'm with Cirrus Research, as you most likely know. The little presentation next to me gives you a bit of a clue. Thank you for joining us today with regards to our webinar topic of noise nuisance. So I'm going to be talking to you today about how our equipment can help you, some best practice tips, and of course the actual nature of nuisance noise as well. We have a little chat box. You can ask us questions, which we'll address later on during the day. You may during the webinar, pardon me. You may find some of them are answered as we proceed. And just in case an hour of me is not enough for you, which is understandable, you will receive the full video presentation via email. I think about half an hour after the webinar finishes, something like that. So, as I've only got you guys for an hour, I'm going to proceed. I'll take you through our presentation. Have we look at some of our best practice tips, as I mentioned a moment ago, and potentially look at the software depending on how time permits. So, let's proceed. Welcome. So, to begin with, who are Cirrus Research? Well, we are a designer and manufacturer of sound monitoring equipment. We are also a developer of our own analysis software. So the equipment that you have, if you're lucky enough to have some Cirrus equipment, designed and manufactured, designed in this building, in the room next door to me, manufactured at our site down the road, all done in Yorkshire, and the software is written in-house as well. We mention these things so that should you find you ever require any technical support, we make the equipment, we write the software, so we're always here to answer any questions that you may have. Cirrus Research was established in 1970, just before my time, and remains a family-owned business to this day. Excuse me. So we're based in North Yorkshire, and we deal with organisations all over the world, local governments and central governments in the UK and in other parts of the globe. An awful lot of the local governments in the UK now use Trojan nuisance noise recorders for their nuisance noise monitoring. Very grateful to you guys for that, especially if you're here today. Thank you. So, let me just zip you through my little presentation. Pardon me, I forgot to zoom through. We're using, I should maybe full disclaimer, we're using brand new hosting software today. So I have my producer by my side to make sure I don't do anything wrong. I can use our equipment and software, but this is a new one for me. So, what is noise? Noise is defined as unwanted sound, and it's ultimately a subjective term. Nobody says noise in a positive manner. It's always that noise outside, you know, but really it's sound, it's just your opinion of it when you use the word noise. There are two characteristics that impacts people's response to noise. These are generally speaking, the frequency of the noise, so not the makeup of the noise, but how often it's occurring, and the loudness at the decibel level. Sound, as you likely know, but just to confirm, sound is caused by pressure or waves traveling through the medium, usually the air. It can travel through water, but we're specifically talking about air travel and noise today. The traveling through water is a much more specialist topic. The number of pressure variations per second determine the actual frequency of the noise, and these are expressed in hertz, which your system, depending on the specification you have, can give you all of that data. Loudness, however, is determined by the amount of pressure from the sound waves and is expressed in decibels. What about the impact of noise? Only just 1 second. Can you see me on camera for a sec? Sorry guys, so that's a slight technical issue with equipment that we didn't make, so bear that in mind. Noise impacts on lives in many ways. So, pardon me. The two characteristics that impacts people's response to noise is the frequency and the loudness of it. Pardon me, just going through this second page again. Sounds coming from the air. We've done that part, we've done that part. Apologies, new platform. So, what is the impact of noise? Noise impacts on lives in many ways. It can produce hearing loss, which is usually a noise at work issue. It can lead to tinnitus and other hearing conditions, such as noise-induced hearing loss. This again is more of a noise at work issue. Stress can be caused by environmental noise as well. It can be from noise at work, but generally speaking, it would be environmental noise. So not just from airports, but also construction sites, things of that nature, but neighborhood noise or nuisance noise. Stress can lead to sleep disruption, which can exacerbate a situation between neighbors, often resulting in quite agitated phone calls to people such as you that then have to deal with these agitated individuals. When does noise become a problem? Just pause a second. Oh, just bear with me 1 second. My colleagues just asked me to pause for a moment. Yeah. So, when does noise become a problem? I understand some people have not been able to hear me so far, so hopefully this will be addressed. If it's still an issue, please do mention it in the question side. My colleague can let me know. So, when does noise become a problem? When, as per English law, it's when it's prejudicial to health or is a nuisance. However, to establish if the above is the case when a complaint is made, we need to know the following. We need to understand the level of noise, so the decibels, the type of noise, what they're complaining about, how long the noise lasts and how often it occurs. And how often it occurs is really quite an important thing. If this is a daily thing, you know, around about 5 o'clock every day, I have one client who told me about somebody practicing piano, their neighbour practicing piano in the house next door. So at 5 o'clock every day, they were ready to be annoyed because they were anticipating the noise coming. This is going to increase those agitation levels and increase the stressed phone calls that you guys will receive. Also to take into consideration is the time of day that the noise occurs. And it's also better to think about whether the noise is reasonable. We keep using the term nuisance noise, and that's fine. Everybody uses that term and it's okay. but it's better to think, is that reasonable noise? So an example that was given to me from somebody in your line of work, they based in London, and they go into the office early to avoid the traffic, but they'd already had 4 voicemails by just after 7 o'clock in the morning, and it was all from the same street. And these people complain about some gentleman that was digging up the road, and there'd be no warning to the pavement, pardon me. There'd be no warning ahead of time. There wasn't any barriers around this gentleman to try and reduce the noise. So our client got himself down to the street and said to the gentleman, well, what are you doing? You know, you caused a bit of a nuisance. It's only just gone 7 in the morning. You started this before 7. What are you doing? We've had no warning about this. So the gentleman had to explain that though he had no acoustic barriers to put around him while he was working, he was the closest employee to that area, and there was concerns about a gas leak. So all of a sudden, something that was considered a nuisance noise and therefore unreasonable was actually perfectly reasonable behaviour. They had a choice: either this gentleman makes some noise right now, or potentially the street goes up. So which would you prefer? So it's not always just because somebody doesn't like the noise. Then you may have a block of flats where one person above works nights and the person below works days, and you're immediately already going to have conflicts of people's timeframes there, which is going to impact on well, how to put it politely, it's going to impact on how, how to put it nicely, how reasonable the person who's experiencing the noise is going to behave towards the person creating the noise. And also it's going to impact on the type of calls and the volume, the frequency of the calls you get from that complainant. Certain areas are just going to be problematic. We build more and more flats. They have very limited sound installation, people on top of each other. It's a sort of not a recipe for disaster, but when problems arise, you can't really be too surprised. So it's better to think, is the noise reasonable? Is this thing that somebody's complaining about, is they complaining about their neighbour, is their neighbour's behaviour reasonable, or is it really a nuisance? So my example would be somebody mowing the lawn at 10 o'clock in the morning. That's perfectly reasonable. Saturday morning, you may be like a bit of a lie-in, but it's 10 o'clock in the morning, they're just tending to their garden, living their normal life. There's not, you can't really complain about that. However, the same person mowing the same lawn at 5 o'clock in the morning, that's entirely different behaviour. That isn't reasonable behaviour. So even though we all use the term nuisance noise, I'd urge you to think about things whether it's reasonable behaviour, and therefore reasonable noise. Some numbers about noise nuisance here in the UK. COVID, bless COVID, offered quite an interesting impact on noise complaints. Several of our clients noticed a drop in the number of complaints at the start of lockdown, with people sort of, band in together and blitz spirits and all that sort of stuff. And they were focused on other things, their own health. Some of them even concerned about their jobs. However, as people tired of lockdown and removed from furlough, this increased number of people working from home, so complaints started to rise. And I gather from speaking with our clients on a regular basis that they do not appear to be going back down anytime soon. A peak period for complaints is often in the summer months. You have your lighter nights, increase in activity, warm weather, open windows, children at home over the holidays, barbecues and outdoor gatherings, etc., etc. So even though we have a big peak in the sales of Trojan towards the end of your financial years, when you all ring me up and say, Richard, I've got some budget I need to spend, we also see quite a large increase during the summer months as well, for all of the reasons just listed there. It's those summer holidays, they really do seem to exacerbate situations. As many as 1 in 10 people in the UK have claimed to be disturbed by noise from their neighbours on a regular basis. I am one of those, but one of my neighbours is my father-in-law, so I just don't think I'm going to win that argument. Over a quarter of those people complain to their local council or speak to you all the time. You all seem to feel as every single one of them contacts local authorities at the moment. And I can appreciate that from some of the conversations that I have with environmental health officers and ASB officers. I think I could do your job. However, less than a third of those 1 in 10 speak to their neighbours directly about the issue. This is likely out of fear of confrontation and making the situation worse once you've addressed them once. If they completely disregard your concerns, you are much less likely to go and speak to them for a second time about still having the same problem that you didn't care about the first time I spoke to you. I'm now going to engage the local authority. I can understand that. You do hear some cases of things becoming, well, the police involved before you guys even get there, due to pushing and shoving, that sort of a thing. Of those that speak to their neighbour. 5% claim to have actually been physically threatened. Now, this is, of course, an unacceptable behaviour, and again, it's going to prompt people to call you for you to investigate. A large number of complaints come from those living in flats, which I slightly touched on. They are likely to continue to be the group that complain the most as more and more flats are built across the UK. And I don't know what it's like in your part of the world, but when I drive around, whenever I see a new flat development, I don't think I've ever seen a flat development without the word luxury attached to it these days. It'd be great if they spent some of that luxury money on soundproofing. That would be lovely. Of the 1 in 10 that claim they are regularly disturbed by noise, 10% of that number complain of being permanently stressed, even when they're away from home, as they anticipate the noise nuisance upon their return, such as the person practicing piano at 5 o'clock every day. Hopefully, as they improve, that'll be less of a problem. But I tried to play piano, and my first few lessons were awful, so I would imagine that would annoy anybody within that same postcode. So the issue is that they're sat at their desks. They know that when they get home, they're going to have to deal with things, and it just puts them in the wrong frame of mind for when they get home, which means, again, that if they do speak to their neighbour, attitude breeds attitude. They may have been worrying about it all day. They then speak to their neighbour and they have a bit of tone or a bit of attitude about it. And then that is reciprocated by the person that they're complaining to about the noise that they're being made. And it's just a spiral at this point. The types of noise that are most commonly complained about are loud TVs. If you're as old as I am, you may remember those TVs that had a back on them. The producer sat next to me will have no idea what I'm referring to. You used to have them in the corner of the room, and that was all fine. It was actually pretty good for acoustics. Often the walls would help amplify the noise. It was like having special speakers all around your house. It was lovely. However, everybody has flat screen TVs these days, and more people mount them on walls, which is wonderful because that's just close to the other property. Sound insulation isn't what it should be. And it just exacerbates the issues. Before I moved, I would be able to tell you the name of the company that made the film that my neighbour was about to start watching because I'd recognise it from the intro music. And if there's nothing else on at all, and I was perfectly quiet, they switched their kettle on. I could hear that. I don't miss my flat, let me put it like that. Other than TVs, other things that complain about music, repetitive music late at night, parties, arguing, which is a really difficult one for you guys to deal with, and dogs barking. DIY often comes up, but that can have a limit in its duration, hopefully. Once the project's finished, then that's the project done. If they've not had issues before, you would hope that that was the end of it. You may still get phone calls, but you would hope that that would resolve itself. Because once the DIY stops, there's no point in you installing equipment. The problem, as I touched on earlier, it can be made a lot worse by different lifestyles trying to coexist. Retired people living next to young families. So in the town that I used to live at, there are little blocks of flats that used to be for people of my grandma's age. Now, however, due to an increase in population and a social housing stock that hasn't kept up with that, you now have young families moving in as well. So you have the young families working there, living in the same environment as retired people. And that can work out wonderfully. You know, the young kids have got somebody older to chat to, or somebody can keep your eye on the kids when they're in the garden, something like that. But that's in the best case scenario. You can have kids running around at 5 in the morning. That's going to annoy the neighbours. Parents might have working obligations that are therefore quite traumatic, or not traumatic, but annoying to their neighbour, whereas everybody else in the building would be retired. So these problems can be sort of generated themselves. But in the time that I've lived in that village, which has been 20 plus years, the first 15 of that, it was just elderly people living there. But now it's a whole mixture. And I do happen to know from the local council that I deal with that noise complaints have increased in that particular building, those particular buildings. And then, as I mentioned earlier, day shift and night shift workers living in flats next door to each other, that's also a bit of a recipe for a problem. So where do we begin when handling a complaint? 1 second. Okay. So once a call has been made to log a complaint and the basic details are taken, a good first step is to ask the complainant to keep a log of the occurrences. And seeing as we're all friends here, I understand that if people don't keep a log after you sent them the diary sheets and asked them to do so, if they don't keep a log of it, it would be deemed that maybe it's not as much of a problem as was originally suggested. If they can't bother to keep a diary sheet for you, then maybe it's not so much of an issue. You should always start with the diary sheets. It can be a basic paper diary, which is fine. However, if you're a Trojan user, if you have our equipment, you have free of charge, license-free, limitless access to our app, which is called Nuisance. Just in case I didn't make that clear on the screen, completely free of charge. We'll touch on that later. But literally, if you have a Trojan, you're on this call right now. If you don't have Nuisance, you can have Nuisance today if you like. As I say, it's completely free of charge. You just need to be a Trojan client. Nuisance or paper diaries offer two outcomes to the person dealing with the complaint. It's an opportunity to triage complaints. So if you have Mr. Smith ringing up, Mrs. Smith ringing up, one person's complaining about music at 2 o'clock in the morning every single night, and the other person's complaining about kids being noisy when they come home from school. They walk past their house and consider it antisocial behaviour. Of course, that's kids chatting, that would be social behaviour, but good luck explaining that to the person that's complaining. So if you do have that sort of complaint, they're complaining about music at 2 o'clock in the morning, the other people complaining about kids coming home from school between 3 and 4 o'clock. Well, if that's all they're going to log after you give them access to Nuisance, or if you still wish to use paper diaries once they've used their paper diaries, that's fine. But we know from that data who gets a Trojan installed into the house and which complaint is going to be taken further. One is something that you can do about music at 2 in the morning, kids coming home from school and chatting and laughing, not really anything you can address. And beyond the opportunity to triage complaints, it rules out the complainant if the Nuisance is not used or the paper diary is not completed. So paper diaries, they maybe lose those, but Nuisance, that can be on their phone. Unless they've lost their phone, it can be accessed by any device with internet access. But you would hope that they haven't lost their phone and they can use it. It's just a hand. They don't have to have a pen or anything like that. They can just use that. And if they're not going to use that to log instances when they find the noise to be a nuisance or unreasonable, well, then is there any point in installing a Trojan into their home? Do you have anything you can base that on? The other bonus, by the way, about using Nuisance it means you can give the person making a complaint an immediate response. So we're not happy about this noise. Okay, fine. You have access to Nuisance. Please use this for 2 weeks. And we will then review the data after that 2-week period and decide what the next step will be. So at least they feel like they've been heard. Once you have reviewed Nuisance, or the paper diaries, it's time to install. So now we know that the complainant requires monitoring. What are we going to do? Well, to help manage your stock of Trojan or any nuisance noise recorder that you may be using, though I recommend Trojans. First, consider the frequency of the complaints. If it's music being played at a weekend, I'd suggest installing your NNR. I'm just going to use the word Trojan from here on. Your Trojan on a Friday and collecting the following Monday. Therefore, once you've downloaded it, you then immediately got it available for installation on that Monday once you've downloaded your data. And if the noise is only over the weekend, is there any point in monitoring when they say there isn't an issue there? Of course, if you find you've run out of Trojans, give me a call. I'll sell you another one. If it's a dog barking, though, every day of the week, you're going to need the nuisance noise recorder installed for the entire time so you can capture the frequency. You'll only need a couple of recordings to understand how loud the dog barking is to the person inside their property, but how often is it occurring? And are they slightly exaggerating things in their paper diaries or on their Nuisance app? If they are, you're going to find that out because they're going to be using the Trojan and they're going to be logging those instances when the dogs actually bark. But you really do need to have a chat with them to understand the frequency of the noise so that you install the Trojan in the most appropriate time. I'm sure all of you have backlogs to deal with, so the quicker you can get those Trojans back and download the data, the quicker they can go to the next complainant. And one of the things we do like to mention, if you find that the person making the complaint has not exaggerated it, but let's looked at the glass half full, let's say. I'm not going to say exaggerate. Once you've got that data about how frequently the dog is barking, then you can speak to them and say, well, this isn't quite the way that you suggested it. We understand that it's a nuisance, but that means potentially you can start to look towards mediation between the two parties. It's not as bad as you sort of thought. That's an approach you can take to the person who has the dog, who knows some noise. It's not as frequent as we were concerned about, but we'd like to address this. Mediation, generally speaking, is a lot cheaper than court. Quicker too. So when installing a nuisance noise recorder, Trojan, there's a couple of things to consider. Once we've decided how long we're going to install it for, how do we get the best data? Always, and I need to put a third always in there, always calibrate the Trojan when it's in the complainant's home. This is why it's referred to as a field calibration. Recently, and I won't name names, recently a local authority told me that they calibrate the Trojan in the office before they install it in someone's home. And initially I misunderstood and thought, well, that's genius. That's a great approach to take. Check that the equipment is working in the office before you get to the tenant's home to find out you may have an issue. And therefore you're going to have to leave the property with the Trojan still with you, and that's not going to look good. It's also wasting your time, and the tenant's going to find that annoying. So I thought, brilliant, check it in the office, fantastic. But I then incorrectly assumed that once they got to the property, they calibrated the equipment in the property as well. And they were, oh no, Richard, no, we don't do that. We just check in the office. Okay, well, it's unlikely due to the phone cut to store the microphone capsule and the preamp and everything else inside the kit case. It is unlikely that the capsule is going to get damaged. But if you end up in court, you do not want to give the opposing legal representation anything to work with. So if I was a barrister or a lawyer defending you wanting to evict somebody or to find somebody, and you told me that we calibrated it in the office and then we just popped in the bag, popped in the boot, drove to someone's house, installed it, run our toes, hooray for us. I'd say, well, great, how do you know nothing happened to the microphone capsule in between leaving the office and getting to the tenant's home? And even though it's very unlikely anything did, you can't 100% confirm that. So you've just given them an easy win there. You must, no exceptions, calibrate when you install the product in the tenant's home. Also, this one may seem obvious to those of you more experienced. For those of you less experienced, please pay attention. Position your NNR or Trojan in a suitable location. These are usually the living rooms or the bedrooms, table side, the bedside table, mantelpiece, or something like that. Ask them where they are most impacted by the noise. So if it's during the early part of the evening, I'd suggest putting it in the living room. But if it's during the middle of the night, then pop it into the bedroom. But you must ascertain where they think it's worse, and then use that to base your decision on where you're going to position it. Also, please have the microphone facing into the property, even if the noise comes from the neighbour's garden. They complain about parties and things like that. We are trying to understand what they are experiencing inside the home, not worst case scenario. There's no point, if you were having it faced out the window, you may as well be stood there with a handheld sound level meter looking at the decibels live. It needs to be facing into the room, not the window, into the room, so we understand what they are experiencing. So Richard, not worst case scenario. Try to keep the microphone a meter away from the walls if possible, please. This will help minimize reflection. Now, we provide you with quite a small tripod with your Trojan kit. You can attach your tripod to a larger tripod. Surprise, we sell those, though if you have any digital tripod, it ought to fit the Trojan connection. We provide you with that because we don't know the environments that you're going into. We want to include it in the kit. So the smaller tripod means that if they've got kids running around or pets running around or they're hoarders or something like that, you don't have much room to work in. Smaller tripods means the legs are smaller, which means the legs don't spread as far, which means it's much less likely to be knocked over. So try and keep that minimizing to an absolute minimum. Ooh. I'm going backwards, pardon me, guys. This has come up a couple of times, so just to address this, do not position the microphone close to the ceiling or literally on the floor. I have actually had people send me a picture of that. And they sent me the picture and they explained in the email why they'd done it. I could have maybe made the guess, as it says on the screen there. They want to get the microphone as close as possible to the source. However, unless your tenants have their ear to the ceiling or the floor, that's not what they're experiencing. It's also not a good idea to have the most expensive component of your nuisance noise recorder, which is the microphone capsule, the bit right at the top of the silver tube, on the floor where people might step on it. The windshield can protect it, but not from people standing on it. So please do take that into consideration. Honestly, I've seen pictures of them on the floor or on a bookcase as close to the ceiling as possible, because that's where the bangs and thuds were coming from. Unless the tenant's NBA level height and has their ear to the ceiling, it's not what they're experiencing. Please do ensure that the windshield provided, that you use the windshield provided, it's called a windshield, but you're indoors, so the wind's not really an issue, but it does protect it from dust and also slight accidental knocks as well. So please do use that. By the by, if you find that you put this in someone's home and they still smoke indoors, or they use deep fat fryers or something like that, you may find that that windshield starts to get a bit smelly. You can put that through the washing machine on a very cold wash. Please though, don't put it in the tumble dryer. Just leave it on top of a radiator dryer. If you do put it in the tumble dryer, feel free to send me a picture of what it looked like afterwards. I'll pop it on my LinkedIn feed. It must be positioned, this is important, in a habitable area. Now, I don't see this coming up too often when I chat with people about mistakes made, because maybe it's an obvious thing, but just to be crystal clear, you have to have it in a habitable area. Even if the noise is worse in the corridor, people don't seem to spend most of their evenings in corridors. So if you had data, again, you're in court, and so look at these high decibel levels, it's outrageous. And then the defense lawyer says, okay, where did you have that position? Oh, we had it in the corridor, that's where it's worse. Fantastic. Well, does the person make the complaint spend all their time in that corridor? No, they spend their time in their living room or in their bedroom. So it might sound daft, but please do put it in a habitable area. Lock the kit case, people, please. As a favour to me, lock the kit case. If you don't, the tenant will likely open it. They won't know what they're looking at, just out of curiosity, not necessarily, nefarious reasons, but just out of curiosity. There are buttons there. People like pressing buttons. So please do lock the kit case. We provide you with a padlock, and there are 2 points on the kit case that you can lock it on. So please absolutely do that. Once you have positioned your instrument in a suitable location, ensure the tenant understands how to use a remote control fob to instruct the instrument to record audio. So just to be crystal clear, in case they ask, it is constantly logging the decibel level as soon as you press start. But it only records audio when the tenant tells it to record audio by using the key fob. You may have the wired option, but the vast majority of the people I've checked on this call have the remote control fob, not the wired option. So we need for them to only record audio when it's annoying. I've heard audio complaints from people when they've had Trojans installed. I once heard somebody complaining about the level of noise generated when somebody said thank you to a pizza delivery person at about 10 o'clock in the evening. They even logged that, complained about that. Good luck managing the public. I wish you all the best. So if a part of the complaint, by the by, includes the slamming of doors, then you may wish to remind them about the pre-trigger, which is going to help capture the slamming. So when they press record on the key fob, depending on the model that you have, if it's a Trojan Light, it's 20 seconds. If it's a Trojan 2, it's up to 30 seconds. It will capture the audio before they press record. So the pre-trigger. Incidentally, when they press stop, there's a post-trigger, and that's going to capture 20 seconds of audio on a Trojan Light and up to 60 seconds on a Trojan 2. So if the door is slamming, the tenant might say to you, well, by the time the door's slammed, I press record, the door stops slamming. Don't worry, Mrs. Miggins. We have a pre-trigger, and it's going to capture that noise. It's specifically for that purpose, to make sure that we can capture instantaneous noise. Remind them that the instrument only stores X amount of audio, so to be selective in its use, you do not need the whole party, you only need a sample of it. The level of audio when it was recorded, you can see a high spike in the time history graph. If it's a 2-hour party, then that level is going to stay, you're still going to see that level on the time history graph for the next 2 hours. So you know the noise was still there. You've already got an example of the noise right at the start without one audio recording. You do not need hours and hours of it. The software, Noise Tools, allows you to configure the Trojan, and it lets you control 2 things. The length of an individual audio recording, the most commonly used option is 5 minutes, the minimum is 2 minutes, the maximum is 4 hours. Please don't select 4 hours. Unless you really, really love listening to nuisance noise recordings. 4 hours is huge. And as people in your line of work have pointed out to me before, they reference the 5-minute recording. If they have to listen to it twice to understand what's really happening, all of a sudden that 5-minute recording is taking 10 minutes to process. Well, if it's a 4-hour recording, you're going to get the same problem. So I would suggest that on the configuration, you should select 5 minutes. You also have control over how much audio full stop you are prepared to let the tenant record. This is found on the configuration screen when you connect your Trojan to Noise Tools. We will be sending little video links out to help people with this and some additional ebooks to help. Now, the maximum amount of audio that your Trojan can record is 32 hours and 45 minutes. You do not need 32 hours and 45 minutes of audio to establish a nuisance noise in the space of a week. 32 hours and 45 minutes is a ridiculous amount of audio. The most common options are 5 and 10% on the configuration bar, and that will either give you an hour and a half or 3 hours and 15 minutes. Bear in mind that if you selected 5-minute maximum audio recordings, that's plenty of opportunity for your tenant to record instances, regardless of the frequency, but it controls how much you have to deal with when you get it back to the office. So however, I suggest that unless you have terribly refined tenants, they're going to probably max out the audio that you allow them to record. So, and if you have a team of people using multiple Trojans, I urge you to all have the configuration set at exactly the same manner. But yeah, one tip we always like to share with people, and this applies regardless of what nuisance noise recorder you're using, but hopefully it's a Trojan. Before leaving, once you've installed the Trojan, ask if you can take a picture of it, and there's two reasons for that. One, you can include that picture, so this is the Trojan in situ, in any of your reports you produce in Noise Tools. That looks nice, a bit of extra evidence to show where things are. But the real reason for doing it is it might just give them pause for thought before they move the Trojan or the nuisance noise recorder to be helpful. You know, the source of the noise has moved. They probably wouldn't use the word source, but the noise has moved, and you know, it's now problematic for me when I'm in the kitchen cooking. So because I'm so nice, I unplugged the Trojan, plugged it back, and popped into the kitchen for you. We don't want people handling the Trojan. Please instruct them to not move it. And to dissuade them, just take a picture on your mobile. Everybody here will have a mobile. They'll all have cameras on it. It takes 5 seconds to take a picture. It may not stop them from moving it, but it might give them pause for thought. So please do that, regardless of whose equipment that you use. Some of the problems that are raised with us by our clients and how we've managed to address some of those issues over the years. People complain about managing paper diaries, complainants not having access to printers, which is a fair point, which let me say me when I don't have a printer at home. Illegible notes made, so you appreciate the fact that they've put some detail in there, but you can't read what it is, so thanks for the thought. And also, we see more and more people having a desire to be paperless due to environmental concerns. So, to help deal with that, we provided NoiseAid, which is completely, just to remind you all, free of charge, license free. And as I said earlier, offers an immediate way to respond to a complainant. They can start logging instances 10 minutes after they got off the phone with you. Removes paper from the process, types notes. You'll see it's typing on their phone and not handwritten, so you should find it a little bit easier to read. Not all complainants will speak English as a first language, so we like to try and be inclusive here at Cirrus Research. So if you've got Google Translate, and my export colleague has been on holiday recently, so God bless Google Translate. If they don't have it as a first language, then you can populate NoiseAid to mimic what they've said. So if somebody said bangs and thuds above, when you set them up with NoiseAid, you can literally type bangs and thuds above, and that's what will appear on their phone. So if you wish to be inclusive, and you've got a Polish person, a French person complaining about noise, Google Translate and pop it into their own language. It'll make them feel more confident using it, and you probably find that they're an easier person to deal with. And I've written something here in blue, and I can't remember how to say it, but it's basically, I think it's dog barking in French. So there you go. That would be, if it was a French person complaining, you Google Translate dog barking, it would say that. If I've got that incorrect, please feel free to correct my French. My colleague Jamie will delight in informing me that I've got that wrong. Also, we have when you get new staff or those on the team lacking confidence when installing a nuisance noise recorder, and that's fair dues. If you're brand new using something, well, look at me, brand new today, using a webinar software I've not used before, and I've taken you up and down. You've seen the same things appear a couple of times while I understand how a mouse works. But also, even if you have installed equipment quite frequently, you may have somebody whispering in your ear whilst you're doing it. So to try and make life very straightforward, we've timed this. Well, I've timed it. I should get out more. Trojans can be set up in roughly a minute and a half. That's from taking out the work stack and pressing start. And every single parameter that is required is monitored as soon as you press start. There is no programming required for the Trojan. We literally need you to press calibrate to calibrate, start to start. You'll see a red circle spinning in the top left of the screen. And when you can see that, it's doing everything it can do. All parameters are being monitored. Just to remind you, it only records audio when the tenant tells it to do so. What happens if you've got a power cut where the instrument has been installed? It results in staff having to go back to the property to restart the measurement. Don't worry about that, we have you covered. There's backup batteries for a start in your Trojan that will give you up to 10 hours, between 8 and 10 hours really, of additional monitoring. Should there be a power cut that lasts beyond those 10 hours, the instrument will shut itself down once the backup batteries have been depleted. However, to try and make your life easier, when the mains power is restored, so if it's a genuine power cut affected the whole road, so everything's switched off. Trojan's died after those 10 hours, backup batteries being used. Well, once the mains power is restored, as long as the Trojan is still plugged into the mains socket, it will start to take a measurement after 10 minutes, as long as it has mains power, without you having to be there to tell it to start. And the reason for that is if the electric comes on at, say, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, do you really want to have to travel to another person, somebody else's home at 10 o'clock at night to walk into a room to press start on a box and then leave again? I don't think so. So this means that, you'll come back to data. So you'll only lose data for the period of time between the batteries being depleted, the backup batteries, and the mains power being restored. Also helpful if you do have them whittering in your ear, and I understand that this is the thing that happens. They're whittering at you and you get out of the property, you get in your car, you drive away and you think, oh dear, did I press start? I'm going to have to turn my car back around, go back into the conversation that I thought was never going to end, just so I can press start on the Trojan. Hooray. Well, the good news is, as long as it took you longer than 10 minutes to turn your car back around and get back to the property, the Trojan's already going to start taking the measurement anyway. And one other little backup, which I didn't include in the presentation, but I'm just going to mention to you, but please don't use this as you approach setting up the Trojan. There is a start button. Please use the start button. These are just backups. But also, once you've locked up the kit case, you put the padlock on, you then show the tenant how the remote control fob is going to work. As soon as you press record on the key fob, or actually it's a triangle symbol, once you press that, a little red light appears on the Trojan kit case, so that you know it's recording audio. Had you have not pressed start before you pressed record on the key fob, that would also trigger the instrument starting a measurement. So best practice, please plug it in and press start. You've got 10-minute backup, so once it's had mains power for 10 minutes, you'll start taking the measurement whether you've told it to do it or not. You can, of course, stop it if you wish. But the other way that we ensure that you do come back to data is when you show the remote control fob, if you haven't pressed start, that will start a measurement as soon as you press record. Saving process, when leaving the property and the complainant's chatting away at you, and sometimes it's helpful. I'm maybe being a bit harsh on them there, but it can be helpful when they explain to you what's been going on. But if they're chatting away, you're trying to take away a scientific instrument that you need to stop working and calibrate and everything else. So the good news is that none of our equipment anymore has a save button. We assume that you want your data. So as soon as you press stop, it's all automatically stored onto the Trojan, ready for you to download using the USB cable to Noise Tools through your desktop or through your laptop. So you don't need to worry. There isn't a save button. So we've removed that step just so it's just one less thing for you to be concerned about if you've got somebody whittering at you or if you're brand new to installing. And pardon me, it just says here, as soon as you press stop, all data and audio recordings, just to be clear, are saved, date and time stamped. The length, I touched on this earlier, of individual recordings and the total audio recorded. Our analysis software, Noise Tools, allows you to dictate how long each audio recording will be as a maximum, not a minimum. They can press start and stop, that's a maximum. And how much audio the complainant can record, full stop. You can complete control of that. Staff lacking in confidence to use the analysis software, which often means more time spent analysing, or often the case, one person in the office who's the Noise Tools expert. Would you mind just having a look at this one for me? And it's like the same request of them every single day. So we like to make our Noise Tools analysis software as easy as possible to use. So as an example, when you're ready to download, there's a button that appears on the screen. It says download. Please press that button. One of the other things that we'll be sending to you as well is just a basic user guide to Noise Tools. Which really is just the basics, but if you can't do the basics, you can't do anything else. That's just a reference tool for you to use in the future if you get new team members or you don't get your hands on the Trojan for a little while. The basic summary report containing LAEQ, level A weight equivalent, the energy over the course of the measurement, LAF, level A weight fast maximum, peak data, octave data, LM values, all of this data can be produced on what's called a summary report. It's the first screen you see on Noise Tools. And there's literally a button. It says quick report. Please press that, and all of those parameters will be pulled into a one-page document for you. A noise nuisance report is also included there, which will list the time and date stamped audio recordings of what decibel levels were achieved. And again, that can be produced literally with 4 clicks of your mouse. You have a nuisance noise report with all of your audio recordings detailed for you. Managing licenses across the team. This always makes me smile. People talk to me about dongles and things of that nature. You know, and I plugged it into my computer, and now nobody else can plug it into theirs. Well, we just don't think that's the way to run things here at Cirrus. It's not how we choose to do it. So anybody on this phone, on this webinar, can download Noise Tools completely free of charge, the full fat version from Cirrus's website, cirrusresearch.com. Select software downloads, pick Noise Tools. If you have the admin rights, if you're using your work computer, you probably don't have the admin rights, but you can always ask. It's completely free of charge, license free, as I say, full fat version. And when you download it, you'll notice that you have no data. It'll say, hey, would you like to import some sample data? And it'll give you examples in lay terms: high frequency, low frequency, audio recording, no audio recordings. Pick the ones you're interested in, it will import it into Noise Tools. You can have a little play about with it, which is a good thing to do because you're therefore having a little play about with the new software package with data that no one cares about. So this isn't data for after it's been inside someone's home for a week. They've been complaining, you've used their electricity to run the Trojan, and now you're a bit anxious about producing some data and understanding things. Import some of that sample data and have a play about with information that nobody's waiting for an answer on. So license free. Just to let you know that's always going to be the case with Noise Tools. The family that own the company are of the opinion. I feel we should charge for it. It's excellent software, and everybody else charges for it. But the family that own the company are of the opinion if you bought the hardware, you should be able to do something with it. And it is difficult to argue with that kind of logic. There we go. So things I've just covered there, written in house free of charge. Please have a look at have a look on our website if you don't have a copy already. So these have popped up. I'm aware of the time, so I've got you all for another 13 minutes or so. So I'm just going to zip through a couple of things. Other problems that we've had raised from our clients. A lot of people working from home these days, so downloading data when working from home that can be impacted by the server at work or your own Wi-Fi in your house. So the Trojan Lite is permanently set to a 24-hour timer. We suggest those setting your Trojan 2 to a 24-hour timer. So this means that each day of the week has its own measurement. So just to be clear, if you install it for 1 week, you have a choice with the Trojan 2. You can come back to one long 7-day measurement with all those audio recordings. And if you've got great Wi-Fi and servers and your laptop's on NASA, lovely. If not, though, you might find it easier to put it on a 24-hour timer so you can download 1 day at a time. All that means is that you're not asking our software will be fine, our Trojan will be fine, but your laptop might struggle, especially if you've allowed them to record a lot of audio. So we'd suggest that 24-hour timer. And just so that you're aware, if I came to anybody's house today and came to one of your homes this evening, install that Trojan at 10 o'clock tonight, the end of the first 24-hour period is always midnight, regardless of how long that measurement period was. And it hits midnight, it stops taking measurement, then it immediately starts taking the measurement a split second later. And the idea behind that is that each day just has one report. We didn't want 24-hour measurements covering 2-day periods. So each day just has its own individual report. It's the way that we suggest. It's the only way you can use the Trojan Lite, but it is the way that we suggest all of our Trojan 2 clients use their Trojan 2. When it comes to playing audio back at the level it was heard in court or for mediation, people used to, you may have done this yourself, recorded the calibration tone and then played the calibration tone through a speaker till it handheld meter, so you're waiting for the decibel level that the acoustic calibrator emits a tone at, and that's fine. If that's what you can do with your equipment, no trouble at all. And if you have Noise Tools, if you go to the word Tools above Noise Tools, you'll see speaker calibration. This does require a standalone speaker. Don't worry, we sell those if you wish. This allows audio to be played back at the level it was heard when it's recorded. So you go through the on-screen process. It's a 4-step process. It's detailed on screen every time you do it. It should take you about a minute to set that up, which should be ample for court. You can lose the room if you take longer than that. But once you've gone through that process, you'll see a great big green tick appear in the middle of your Noise Tools screen. And from that point, any audio that you play through that speaker will be played at the level it was heard when it was recorded. So nobody can say you've turned it up to make it sound worse. Or if you're telling somebody we can't take this any further, it's not a nuisance noise complaint, we've got the audio recordings, and they say, oh, well, you've played it back, you've turned it down, you're minimizing my complaint, you just can't be bothered with me. So, well, excuse me, Mr. or Mrs. Tenant, you've seen me go through the calibration process. That minute that it took Anything that's been played from that speaker has been played at the level it was heard when it was recorded by you and your property. There is no, I've not impacted it, I've not added to the volume or decreased the volume at all. That is available no matter which version of the Trojan you've got, and regardless of the version of Noise Tools that you're running. But please do always check Noise Tools for updates. So speaker calibration, fancy the word Noise Tools in the top left of the screen, select the word Tools, speaker calibration appears, and there are literal on-screen instructions with illustrations telling you what to do. Please do use it. Sharing measurements. This is an issue that people have raised with us. Sharing measurements, data or audio recordings with team members or third parties such as the police or legal team. Well, just to reiterate, Noise Tools, it's free of charge and license free, so anybody anywhere can download it. Then all you need to do is send a measurement transfer package. This will be detailed in the links that will show you. This is the entire set, including the audio, and you can send it via email to anybody with email. That always helps. And Noise Tools, which they've just downloaded from our website. Once they've downloaded Noise Tools, they've opened up your email with your measurement transfer package, your MTP file, or in other words, your measurement data. You simply click on the icon, it's pulled into their copy of Noise Tools, and every single thing that you can do, they can do. Now, because you're local authorities, or a lot of your local authorities, there is an option before you export to remove names and how when you've detailed your report. So you may have used case reference numbers, the address or the name of the tenant, but you want to send it to a third party and you don't want to share that information. If you want to tick the box that says include people, places, and projects, anything that you've typed to mark up that data will not appear when you send the information. So they still see the graph, they can still listen to the audio, though you can remove audio too by unticking the box, but they won't see any data. And the reason I mention that is because less and less people allow us to do team viewers when they need tech support. So if you need some support from me, and I normally do a team viewer, and your IT department, nope, you can't do that. You can't. You're not allowing me to do that remotely. Then I'd have you send me an MTP file. I download it to my copy of Noise Tools, and then what you can see on your screen, I can see on my screen, and I can guide you through it. I can also help you understand some of the numbers that you're looking at. So bear that in mind. Anybody can download Noise Tools, and you can share the full data set via email to anybody who requires it. Maintain the equipment or repairing damaged equipment. So let me see if we can put some smiles on faces. As long as you calibrate your equipment with Cirrus every year, whether it's our UCAS, we are a UCAS registered lab, or our standard traceable calibration, we offer a warranty of up to 15 years against accidental damage. Now that's extended by 12 months every time you send it back for calibration. So as long as you send the full kit back to us every year to Cirrus, nowhere else, to Cirrus for calibration, we extend the warranty against accidental damage. This covers cables, this covers anything. If you're out and about doing handheld measurements, so you've taken the meter out of your Trojan 2 case, you drop it, you smash the screen, do not panic, do not worry, send it to us. We always try to repair instead of replace. It's better for the environment, and all that will be free of charge as long as you've calibrated in the last 12 months. So please do that. 15-year warranty is twice what anybody else will give you. And it even includes the microphone capsule, which is far too generous in my opinion, but I'm not in charge of these things. Microphone capsule and class 1 instrument, that's about £450 just to replace that. That's only slightly less than your calibration for the year anyway. So calibrate, please. It's calibration, also insurance almost. The only thing it doesn't cover is any items that you've lost. If you've lost those or they get stolen, give me a call and I'll sell you something else. But any damage, including the microphone capsules covered, we just need you to calibrate every year. So what do our clients get in their kits? Well, your Trojan kit is your lockable case, sound level meter in the middle, which is the graphic you see here, the only bit in red. This is the Trojan 2. If you have a Trojan Light, you can't remove it there for handheld measurements. You get an acoustic calibrator. This is the device that verifies the meter's working correctly. You get key fob if you buy Trojan Light, or key fobs if you buy Trojan 2s. You get 2 with the Trojan 2, 1 with the Trojan Light. Microphone, you have to be surprised to learn. That's always quite helpful. Tripod, that little mini tripod, which is detailed at the top of the graphic. A padlock to lock the case, please lock the case. Security tags, if you wish, which are fine. I don't use them myself because you have to remove them with scissors. Ask your HR department how keen they are for you to take scissors into a tenant's home. In fact, I'll save you asking. They're not keen. You can use them as cable ties, though, to stop people tripping over, which is useful. Everything comes in a weatherproof rucksack, as you might expect. Then we have our analysis software, which is the free of charge software I've been speaking to you about. And the reason I've slightly picked up the pace, I've just realized now I've only got you guys for another 6 minutes. So with Noise Tools, you will be able to do the following. Download your data, of course. Produce reports, as you may expect. Play audio, which is certainly helpful when dealing with nuisance noise recordings. Share data in the manner that I've just mentioned to you all. Calibrate your speaker, so you can play it back at the level it was heard when it was recorded. And all of this is free of charge, license free, and update free. What about Noise Aid? So this is free of charge. If any of you want this, please let me know, and I can have you set up with Noise Aid. So this is the digital complaint log. It's a simple way for users to log information about noise sources. You can determine if a complaint needs to be addressed further. And it should be used both before you install the Trojan, but also alongside the Trojan. You should still have them. You would still have them fill out paper diaries if they have the Trojan there. So therefore, you should still have them use Noise Aid once the Trojan has been installed. Each user gets their own PIN. You all get your own user IDs as well. I won't ruin the surprise, but if you're East Riding of Yorkshire Council, it's going to be EY, and I'm ruin surprises for any of you that don't have it yet. But please do get in touch. It's free of charge. As it mentions that for all Trojan clients, it's completely free. I'm just trying to jump through the next part. So what is Noise Aid? How does it work? I call it an app, but really it's a web app. It's a live page in essence. It's really they're visiting noiseaid.com, so nobody has to install anything or download any software to their devices. It can be used on any device with a web browser, including PCs and tablets. Tablet may be okay, PC not particularly practical. It allows them to log occurrences of the noise that are troubling them. There's an administration portal, so you can set up the users and view records. And as I say, secure encrypted data stored with birds. We can help you reset passwords, but we can't look any information once you set up the account. As I say, you get your own 2-digit code. They get their own unique 6-digit password. Just to reiterate, no user identifiable data is stored. No audio recordings, no location data, no nothing. This is to make life easier for GDPR purposes. This is what it looks like on screen to your tenants. They can take the tour. It's not the most exciting thing, but they're welcome to do so. This is what it looks like when we first log on, and then I'm just going to jump to the next screen so it's a little bit easier. So I put dogs barking, loud TV, kids shouting, but whatever you type will appear as those options. So if you do type bangs and thuds above, that's what will appear on the screen. This is also, if you do it in different languages, this is where that will appear for the person who speaks. It doesn't have English as the first language. So they pick whatever the problem is, dog barking, severity level, they're going to pick 3. So they click onto 3, and then they're prompted to make a note as to where they are. Why is this annoying you? Because otherwise it's just numbers next to the words dog barking. So it's helpful for you to understand that, and they're prompted to make notes. Reiterate in case I've not said it. I've just checked this 1,000 times. I've said this. It's free of charge for Cirrus Trojan customers, just in case you wondered. It's simple to use. No need to install anything. It can be downloaded with any device with a web browser. Very quick recap. How are we doing for time? I've got you guys for 3 more minutes. Recap. Use Noise Aid or paper diaries to triage complaints, but also once a nuisance noise recorder or Trojan has been installed, we still want them engaging with it, making it clear why they found it to be annoying. Always calibrate the noise nuisance recorder at the start and the end of the measurements. Please, if you have data and you're in court and you haven't calibrated, you don't have data that means anything. You must calibrate, field calibration, call that for a reason. Position the mic in a habitable area and face into the room. Try to consider reflection and position the meter away from the walls. Take a picture once the nuisance noise recorder is in place for additional evidence and also to deter people from moving it once you've left. Remind the complainant of the limit to audio storage, so they try and consider what they record. Consider the parameters that are important to you, but bear in mind that everything that the instrument can monitor, apart from the audio, as soon as you press start, it's monitoring. You don't need to program it. Use pre and post triggers on audio recordings. Now, I suggested that helps you with doors slamming, and of course they do, but if we're all being honest from here, we all use nuisance noise recorders. The other reasons for pre and post triggers is trying to capture out any complaints that are let's say disingenuous. Now, I've seen the list of people who are attending, and I know where you are in the world. You're some lovely bits of the world, and I'm sure that every complaint you ever get is entirely genuine, but that's not always the case. Certainly not where I live. So those pre-triggers can capture people aggravating the dog next door, and then it starts barking, and they press record, but you get 30 seconds of them aggravating the dog and then saying press record, and that's fine on the pre-trigger. Usually people are smart enough though to shut up if they're generating the noise themselves or instigating the noise. On the post-trigger though, they often pat themselves on the back about what a good job they've done. So they press stop. It's no longer recording audio, but they forgot about the post-trigger, so you're going to get either 20 seconds on the light or up to a minute on the Trojan 2 of them saying, well, look at this, this will work, this will get in trouble, blah, 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 blah. And then you can have a lovely awkward moment when you play that audio back for them. So yes, it helps catch impulse noise, but as we all know on this call, also helps you understand if the noise if the complaint is disingenuous. Consider the frequency and time of the noise. This will help you understand how long you need to install it for and the most appropriate days. Consider the type of noise. What is it that they're complaining about? Is there going to be anything that you can do about this? And ask yourself finally, is it reasonable? I really want to hammer that point home. You keep using the word nuisance noise, but nuisance is a descriptive term. Noise is a descriptive term. Is it reasonable? That's what really matters. If it's not reasonable, you may well be able to do something about it. But if it's reasonable noise, as annoying as it might be, that's just that person living their life, mowing the lawn at 10 o'clock in the morning, then frankly, there's only so much you're going to be able to do. Thank you all so much. And I rushed through the last 5 minutes there. Thank you. Firstly, thanks very much for taking the time to attend. For all of you that are Trojan clients, which I think is the vast majority of people on here, thank you so much for your custom. My colleague has been keeping her eye on all of the questions that have popped up. Jamie, is there anything, a common theme? So it was slightly gone over time. Any common theme that people like addressed?
Someone asked what your thoughts are on low frequency noise, as a lot of complaints have been around low frequency noise nuisance.
Okay, great. Thank you for that question. So when it comes to low frequency noise, that can be really problematic because it often low frequency noise, people refer to it as a humming in the background. So first of all, you've got to figure out what the humming is, and that can be difficult. So we've got to look at that. But often low frequency noise, it seems to me, can be something that continues on and on and on and on, and it's going to be problematic for people the entire time. Depending on the Trojan that you have, if you have a Trojan 2, the B model, it will log low frequency data and break it down for you. However, one good thing is, regardless of the piece of equipment that any of you have, whether it's a Trojan 2 with octaves, a Trojan 2 without octaves, or the Trojan Lite, please be aware of this. If they make an audio recording, when you download that audio recording, you will see that a frequency analysis tab appears on Noise Tools. And even though you haven't paid for the equipment with first and third octaves, as long as you have audio recording, you have fast Fourier transfer, or 1.12 octaves. And that will be on every audio recording, regardless of the specification of Trojan that you've purchased. So if there is low frequency noise and you think you might be able to identify what the source is, aircon or some device running in the room next door, or they live a flat above a takeaway or something like that, and there's something constant whirring. Then when you download that audio recording, you can drill down further and you can look at the 1.12 octaves, and it will help you get a much better understanding of that low frequency noise. Thank you very much for the question. Jamie, anything else? Let's have a look. So I'm sorry, guys, I'm just trying to look at a separate screen. So I'm just going to, I think, look at some questions, see if there's any more complaints we've seen about low frequency. Sure, thank you for that, sure. I understand the thing about issues, so 10 separate cases, less than 20. This is true due to memory storage. So I'm just going to, sorry guys, you can hear me muttering into the microphone. I'm just reading that question. So let me just read this question out loud so I can understand it. So this is Sean. Hello, Sean. Thanks for the question. I understand the 32 hours of available recording. Super. But I believe we've had issues when circa 10 separate cases, less than 32 hours, appears to prevent further recordings. Is this true due to a memory storage overload? I think I should be wearing my glasses, guys. Apologies. So, I understand from that, if I understand this correctly, Sean, so you've had a Trojan. There are 10 separate cases, so that means 10 different complaints, so 10 installations. And even though they've recorded less than 32 hours, this does it prevent further recordings? If you have, if you have your Trojan set to the maximum 32 hours and 45 minutes, which will give you 7 days of time history, which is the term we use for the length of measurement, then please don't have it set to that for a start. It's too much audio. You don't need that amount. But if the audio has been breached, maxed out, so you've seen the full 32 hours and 45 minutes has been used, then what's going to start doing is overwriting the audio at the beginning of of that particular measurement. So we used to have it so that it would stop dead. So at the end of the time period that you said you wanted to allow them to record for, they can no longer record audio. But some people like that. Other people wanted to be able to overwrite audio So they captured stuff later in the week when people were using the Trojan in a bit more refined manner. So currently it overwrites. We are looking at putting an option there that will allow you to tick a box where you dictate it stops dead at 32 hours or whatever you've selected, or if you're happy for it to overwrite. So I hope I addressed that question, Sean. I didn't quite see it. Oh, I've got some more questions on the screen. Who is this? Let me have a look. So, guys, let's have a look. Daniel. Hi, Daniel. Can noise logs from using Noise Aid be downloaded to PDF form to be kept for records? Yes, indeed, they can, Daniel. And when you've done that, you've turned that log into a PDF. When you download to Noise Tools, you look at your measurement, there's also an option to attach a file to that measurement. So you'll be able to attach that PDF to that measurement. Well, so oh, you're welcome, Sean. You're welcome. And Paula, you too. So back on. So I'm just reading these questions. That's the first time I've seen them, so I'm having to read them. Let's see. Paul, okay, so on the back of this, we'll recently full instructions. Small fact sheet. Always come across there. That's a name and address. So Paula, I think that says Paula. Hi there, Paula. Thank you for the question. So you have full instructions. They'll be in with your Trojan, and we can also send you those electronically. That'll be a pleasure. We have everybody's email details, and as you specifically asked for that, it'll be a pleasure to include it when we bob over the video to you. Thank you very much, Paula. I'll also send you a couple of video links as well, based on noise tools, which you might find helpful. Got time for another couple of questions, guys. Let's have a look. When creating, so I'm just reading this out front. Let's have a look. Hi, Chris. Chris R. Hello, Chris R. When creating a label on a marker on Noise Tools, when you enter a detailed description, it does not appear on the report that is generated. I've raised this issue as the label text only allows you to enter a small amount of text. Is there any way that the detailed description on a marker can be included in the Noise Tools Nuisance report? That's a great question, Chris. Thank you for that. I've been asked that a couple of times myself in demonstrations and training sessions, and luckily, because I'm work in the room next door to my colleagues who write the software for Noise Tools. This is something that I've highlighted to them. So currently, what you're saying, Chris, is when you produce a report, unless you put a marker on it, it will just say audio when you produce your time history report or your noise nuisance report. They offer you the same information. I prefer the time history, just by the by. However, if you highlight over those audio recordings and give them a name, such as dog barking, then when you produce that noise nuisance report or the time history report, I suggest you look at the time history report. It pulls the same data together. It just doesn't try to pull it onto one document, one sheet, which the noise nuisance report does. So if you call it dog barking, it will call it dog barking when you produce that report and show you the time frame. And also, if it's the same instance happening again and again and again, it's always dog barking, dog barking, dog barking. As long as you highlight each of those instances, call them dog barking, spell them the same. So if you have a capital D on the first time, capital D running through all of them, then when you produce that time history report, it will group all of them together because it understands it's the same occurrence. It'll give you an average value for the amount of times that happened, the frequency of it happening, in other words, how many times it happened, and as I say, that average decibel value, which I find quite helpful. Whereas if you don't mark over them, if you just have the show audio markers, it will only detail the word audio. So you can, once you've listened to it, drag over, highlight it. But you've asked about additional annotations, so I'm afraid that the only thing that you will see currently in Noise Tools is the label you've given it. So if it is dog barking, that will appear. But if you then added notes dog barking, it's a border collie, gosh, these things are loud, then that information about the border collie is not going to appear. It's only going to be the description of dog barking that will appear in the report. I hope that helps, Chris. Let's have a look. Who else have we got? What time are we on? So I'm going to keep going until 1:45, if that's okay. For those of you that have had to leave already, don't worry, it's too much more. But this is all being recorded, so if you do have to disappear, don't worry. The answers to the questions that I see will be coming up. This part of the video will be included when we send it to you. So what else do we have? Hi, Tom P. Hello there, Tom P. Should we use rechargeable batteries in the SLM? Does it charge when R6 plugged in for backup or just normal batteries? Great question, Tom. These are good questions. I would have been polite anyway about the question. Wow, these are amazing questions, but these are really good ones. So hooray, thanks, guys. Can you use rechargeable batteries in the sim? Yeah, in the SLM? Yes, you can. Silent for me, for everybody. Yes, you certainly can. As you probably know, though, rechargeable batteries degrade over time. So when it says 100% charge, it may only be holding 75% charge. So you're not going to get as much backup from them. Does it charge whilst they are plugged in? I wish that it did, but no, I'm afraid that it doesn't. And it says it will just use normal batteries. So I always put normal batteries in mine, but I use mine for training and demonstration purposes. whereas you're using them all week inside people's homes. So the rechargeable batteries are fine, but they do degrade over time. Alas, I'm afraid that the Trojan itself won't charge those batteries. So for me, if ever you're unsure, stick 4 brand new AA batteries back into that. Who else do we have? Hi, Susan S. Hello, Susan. Hi, could you do another session on using noise tools to interpret results? Certainly, Susan. We often do that. We have a couple of options here. We are actually, thank you for that suggestion. My producer is nodding her head at me right now. She's written this down. Thanks, Susan. You should create some more work for me. God bless you. God bless you, Susan. In the meantime, though, whilst we launch that webinar, there are a couple of options that you have. We have live Teams training sessions. So those are for specific clients, which is a paid for service. So it's me in the studio with Trojans, overhead cameras, and all that sort of stuff, and noise tools. We also offer on-site training, which is fee-based, as you may expect. We will be looking to do a webinar on noise tools and interpreting results, and it's going to be focused on nuisance noise, because you can use it for all of our products, noise at work, environmental, product testing, everything else, but we just focus on that one topic. Then finally, we have a new training portal that we've launched about 2 months ago, I think, and one of the courses on there is specifically for Trojan nuisance noise recorders, users of Trojan nuisance noise recorders, setup, takedown, interpretation, best practice, some of the things that we've covered today. That, off the top of my head, is, I can't recall, I think it's £199 per person. Once you've accessed it once, so you have permanent access to that course. So should you require a refresher in 6 months' time, you've been on holiday, you've been doing some work for a different department, you're not 100% sure before you start using the Trojan, you can re-access the course. You don't have to pay a fee again. So we've got the portal. We can do on-site live sessions, in person, pardon me, via Teams, online live sessions specific for a local authority and me, or you can attend the webinar based on noise tools when we have a date for when it launches. What's this? Excellent. Moving from not work is this normal? Hello there, Tom. Thanks again for coming back to us. So one last question, guys, unless I can see anything else. So thank you, Tom, again for the question. We've experienced the Trojan will not work if plugged into the mains, but the batteries are flat. Is this normal? That's definitely not normal, Tom. Thank you for raising that. I have your email details, or I will, or Jamie has your email details. So you're going to probably hear from me directly. So I might have a little chat with you about that and see if that's still occurring. If you have more than one Trojan, did you find it across multiple platforms, multiple units, pardon me. So no, it's not supposed to do that. The mains power is what we want you to use all the time, but the battery's there for backup, and it should not impact on that use at all. Thank you for that question, Tom. You're going to be hearing from either myself or technical support directly. Neil, you are very welcome. It's a pleasure. Thank you for being with us today. I appreciate that. So, guys, any other questions before we say cheerio? Okay. Super. Well, everybody. Oh, I'm back on screen. I'm back on screen. Hold on a minute. I'm sure I look shorter on camera. So, everybody, thanks an awful lot for your time. I'm going to make a confession. When you can see my eyes down here, it's because I'm looking at my own image, which is tragic. I look up here, Jamie, do I look now like I'm looking directly at camera? Okay, so for the last part, I'm going to do this, but if you see me doing that, know that I'm being vain. So, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. I hope that you found it helpful. My apologies for slightly overrunning, but thank you all for the questions. They were great. For those of you that are Trojan clients, which I think is the majority of people on here, thank you very much for your custom. We appreciate that. I am available. If anybody wishes to contact me directly, if you've got a pen to hand, you can reach me on the following number, which is 07738 545 114. That's 07738 545 114. And I'll save any awkwardness. It's Richard. Hello, I've been with you for an hour now. Richard Cutting, give me a call, queries or questions, always happy to chat. Some of the questions that have popped up in the chat, which I've not been able to address due to time constraints, I'll have a look to coming back to. Tom, I'm certainly going to be coming back to you, or my tech colleagues will be coming back to you. We'll let you know when the Noise Tools webinar is available, and everybody that's attended this, we assume that you're quite interested in that, you'll get a direct email letting you know about it. But thank you all so much. And for all the thanks popping on the screen, bless you, you're all very welcome. Hope you have a great rest of the day. I'll see you again soon. Take care. Cheerio.